Hello, we're going to talk about individualized education plans, IEPs. Right here, it's stated as individualized or individual education program, but more often you're going to hear it referred to as individualized education plan or IEP. So this is an actual IEP that was developed or actually reviewed in September of 2021. IEPs need to be evaluated annually. So in this particular instance, you don't want IEPs to expire, and I'll talk about that. But hopefully the school will be on it and ready to go at the beginning of the school year of 2022 in terms of having a meeting to reevaluate this IEP. But if you weren't hearing about it being planned, or it's just important to check on it, because if it expires, there's times where you might have to start the whole testing process over again in order for a child to get an IEP. And a child with special education needs an IEP because this document legally provides them with the kinds of accommodations that they will need in order to be successful. So this IEP is developed starting with what's called an S-team or a support team meeting. And so that happens whenever someone on a team, that could be you, that could be a guidance counselor, teacher. Hopefully it'll happen, as a child's younger rather than later in their educational years. Someone has a concern, or there's a known learning disability diagnosis, and they say, we need to have this S-team meeting, support team meeting, to all get together, teachers, guidance counselors, school psychologists, to say, how can we help this child? What are we seeing? What kind of testing do we need to put in place in order to determine whether or not we need this IEP, these accommodations that will help the student be successful. So it starts with the S-team, then goes to testing. Those results determine what's going to go into this IEP. So this is a fifth grader, which you can see right here, who is diagnosed with autism. And so I'm just going to go through this. Hopefully I've blocked out all the names, and just kind of show you what an actual IEP looks like. So it starts off, going back to this child's birth, and talks about having complicated pregnancy, and the fact that the child was premature, developmental delay, sleep disturbances. There were noted increased lead levels at birth. So these things might have impacted the child's development from a very early age. So it's a pretty deep dive into the child's development. So we'll run through it. It talks about current information, strengths, things that the child enjoyed, things that are going well. And then it also talks about concerns, the fact that this child has trouble staying focused, grade level vocabulary is a concern, greatest academic weakness, math, those kinds of things are talked about. And again, it goes, we'll kind of skip through this. I'm not going to go through everything. It talks about the present level of performance. iReady is a testing that's really common in elementary schools. They use that to assess actual skills like fluency, to see where there are strengths and deficits. And then it talks about, the fact that the child's in the 27th percentile, and the fact that if they're between 25 and 75, that's considered low to high average. Talks about, like I said, it really looks for those, drills down to those actual ways that children learn, like decoding skills, phonics, vocabulary. Those are the different things that they know that they'll need to focus on in individual learning and small groups, and the way that they structure this child's, how this child is taught. All right, again, I'm not going to go into everything, but present level of performance talks about, again, those specific skills, sequencing, those kinds of things it talks about. And I'll just pause for a second to let you all look at this. Talks about eye contact being inconsistent. That's very common with autism. It talks about, again, level performance, mastery of standards, and this child starting to understand that he needs to raise his hand if he would like to take a turn in class. He definitely benefits from checklists and social stories. So these are the kinds of things that, you know, if the child's starting the 6th grade next year, the teachers and the team can look back on that and say, oh, okay, this might be something we need to implement. Measurable annual goals. So this talks about actual things that we are really hoping this child, based on our conception of what they're able to do. These are some things that we're hoping that this child will be able to do given the interventions that we're going to be putting in place. So for example, given a story read to him or by him, the child will identify the cause and effect with 80% accuracy. And so they have ways of measuring that. And so there's some different other kinds of ways that they're hoping to actually see, are these things that we're putting in place, are we reaching these measurable goals? We'll go into all of these. And it's all going into language skills. All right, so this actually goes into what are we going to do? What are the accommodations that are going to be put into place so that we can help this child be successful? So these are things that, you know, in a general education class, not all children get these things, but this child will get, you know, on testing, things will be read to them. They're going to have flexible time limits and breaks. Repeating directions. Not all students get those during testing. And that goes into the different, what are we going to do in the different classes? There's a lot of kind of repetitive accommodations in a lot of these subject areas, because usually it's the same teacher. Testing accommodations, again, it goes into those. What are we going to do? Extended time. This talks about the special education that they're going to receive. They are going to get time with a special education teacher 5 times per week. So every single day, they're going to be pulled out of their regular education class to do these things in their special ed classes. And it talks about, you know, the fact that they're going to have a speech and language pathologist. This is a special person that comes into the school to work with kids who need this accommodation. You know, if they were in a wheelchair, they might need that kind of area filled out. And then everybody signs off. If you were to participate, which you have every right to do, you would probably be asked to sign off on that. And that is what an actual IEP looks like. I hope that was helpful.